Thanks for coming to this session. This is to give you some background information about what we're calling the microcerts at the University of Melbourne, which are aimed at post-professional development in particular areas of knowledge for learners that have cognate backgrounds or in the industry or allied industries and want to have an opportunity to upskill, to broaden their currency of their knowledge. And the Faculty of Architecture, Building and Planning is hosting a series of microcerts in urban and cultural heritage. And I'll just introduce myself as Professor Hannah Louie. I'm one of the directors of ACAHUCH. And ACAHUCH is the Australian Centre of Architectural History and Urban and Cultural Heritage. And we are affiliated with these microcerts, and the academics within ACAHUCH also teach into the microcerts. And I'll just get the other speakers to introduce themselves. James, do you want to?
Sure, yeah. So I'm a researcher based in ACAHUCH. And my research looks at values-based conservation and a heritage philosophy and heritage practice in the Australian context. I also am the facilitator of the ACAHUCH MicroCerts.
Philip.
Hi everyone, I'm Professor Philip Goad. I'm Chair of Architecture in the Faculty of Architecture, Building and Planning, and also a co-director with Hannah and also Julie Willis of ACAHUCH. And I have input into the microcerts program as well. Outside the university, I'm also currently the Chair of the Heritage Council of Victoria. So have a good external working knowledge of heritage and how it applies in a statutory sense as well.
Stuart.
I'm Stuart King. I lecture and research in architectural history and heritage within the faculty. So my research is affiliated with ACAHUCH, and I'm also the program coordinator for the Master of Urban and Cultural Heritage. And we'll talk a little bit about that program later on in this information session.
Great. And just before we proceed, I'd just like to acknowledge the Indigenous owners of the land on which we are running this event today, and that might be multiple lands depending on where everybody is, and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. I guess I'll just talk to a few of these slides and then hand over to Philip. We're going to be pretty quick and then have ample time for questions. But we think that the Melbourne School of Design, or it's got two names, I guess, the Melbourne School of Design and the Faculty of Architecture, Building and Planning, is a really uniquely placed faculty to learn from both academics but also affiliated practitioners in the realm of heritage. And we can draw on multidisciplinary skills of architecture, history, urban planning, landscape, construction, to really bring that set of really, I think, appropriate multidisciplinary knowledges to the practice and research in issues around heritage. And as we've already introduced, our sort of research group or centre, university centre called ACAHUCH, sorry for all these acronyms all the time. It's a university disease, but so yeah, there is a very close affiliation between us and the microcerts, and also the Masters of Urban and Cultural Heritage that Stuart will talk about in a minute. Next slide. Philip, do you want to talk about heritage?
I've unmuted. Sure. So the big question is, what is urban and cultural heritage, which is a key part of ACAHUCH's mission. We would all know through sustainability that, and times of conflict, times of disaster, that urban and cultural heritage is really central to all of our cities globally. And how to manage, think about, interpret, to conserve urban and cultural heritage practices which are really becoming matters of urgency and really significance to everyone. And as many of you are already or planning to be heritage professionals, we really need to learn how to tackle a broad range of challenges, particularly issues here in Australia, rapid urbanisation, but also there are major issues of economic, social, and particularly environmental sustainability. In Australia, for example, with the extraordinary bushfires, the disastrous bushfires, something that really didn't make the news and should have more was the amount of heritage structures and landscapes which were laid waste through environmental disaster. And the recovery plan for those areas is quite extraordinary and but also quite a new shift in the ways of thinking about heritage management. And of course, there's social and cultural change. So next slide.
Thanks, Bill. I can take over from here. And I'll start to introduce the Melbourne Microcerts as well. And I was glad you used that example of bushfire recovery just a moment ago, because that is actually one of the modules in our first microcert statutory heritage, where we have representatives from the Victorian government, from Heritage Victoria, who are involved in cross-government efforts to think about questions of conservation in light of what happened, I suppose, a couple of summers ago. But the Melbourne Microcerts more generally are a comprehensive suite of professional development courses designed for people, as Hannah mentioned earlier, of diverse backgrounds seeking to acquire and expand their skills. So there are 4 microcerts: statutory heritage, which is being delivered twice in 2022 in March and November, which looks at the key legislative environment for heritage. And I'll talk a little bit more about statutory heritage across this presentation, which will be our case study for how the microcerts work and what you can expect to learn. The other microcerts I won't talk about as much today, but follow a similar format: the introduction to values-based heritage, new approaches to heritage significance, and new tools for documenting heritage fabric. Introduction to values-based heritage introduces the Borough Charter and introduces the key philosophy and practice of how heritage is managed in the Australian context, across all areas of government and all areas of private practice as well. New approaches is a complement to values-based heritage and slightly more advanced. For example, for people who have some familiarity with the Borough Charter, which is looking at cutting-edge ways of thinking about heritage significance from a series of case studies. So we've had a range of experienced and also a range of people who are newer to heritage but are interested in questions such as social value and environmental sustainability as central to heritage practice, who have taken on the new approaches to heritage significance. And finally, the most architecturally focused and fabric focused of the microcerts is the new tools for documenting heritage fabric, which is really an exciting opportunity to engage with new technologies, things such as drones and LiDAR scanning and so on, that enable us to re-look at heritage and materiality in ways that we haven't had the opportunity to do so before. So the full program of microcerts is all 4, but each can be taken individually and they can be taken non-consecutively as well. So that's statutory heritage, introduction to values-based heritage, new approaches for significance, and new tools for documenting heritage fabric. The only exception to this is if you're brand new to heritage, so you're in an allied field but haven't worked with heritage before, we probably wouldn't recommend taking new approaches until you've done introduction to values-based heritage beforehand. So the key details: each microcert is the equivalent to 37.5 hours of learning, which is about, to put it in regular university terms, it's about a quarter of a single university subject. Our microcerts are delivered fully online. They're delivered as a mixture of workshops via Zoom, self-guided learning videos to complete it in your own time, virtual field trips, readings, assessment, and private study. They're co-designed and they're co-delivered with industry, and they're eligible for continuing professional development with the range of professional organisations. I should also add, although we have those deliveries of the microcerts set up at set times, if you or your organisation is interested in a microcert to be taken privately or taken on site, there are opportunities for that to be done as well, and do reach out to the continuing professional development team if that would be of interest for your organisation. So here we're talking if you have 10 to 15 people at a minimum who would be interested in taking one microcert. So now I'm going to give a little bit of a glimpse of what statutory heritage looks like. When you log on to our Canvas online learning platform, which I suppose is the new generation learning platforms that we now use at the university, you see a course here which is divided into 3 parts: program, people, and the parts themselves. And I'm going to talk through each aspect of that in a moment, about how that program, the people, and the parts all come together. So first and foremost, the workshops. Each microcert has a series of workshops, and the schedule for those workshops is on the course registration page. So in general, for example, for statutory heritage, for instance, there is a 45-minute introduction session, followed by 2 3-hour workshops, followed by an optional drop-in session. But the teaching format for each of the microcerts is slightly different, depending on the most appropriate way to engage with the content and the issues of the microcert. In statutory heritage, or across the range of microcerts, really, there's a facilitator, which is typically myself, but can be other people too. Then we have a series of ACAHUCH contributors who drop in, such as the people who are with us today, Stuart King and Hannah Louie and Philip Goad, who'll come in for a kind of a Q&A and discussion section of the workshop. And then every substantive workshop also has contributors from industry. And people in the past who have come along and dropped in for discussion include Jeff Austin from Heritage Victoria, a senior manager there, and Anna Mortimer from the leading heritage firm Level Chen, which really guide the discussions and conversation to application and industry practice. And then there are these self-guided learning modules. And I wanted to give you a glimpse of the sorts of people and who are presented in these videos, because it's not academics lecturing at you and talking to you, but in fact, the content themselves is presented by people from the field. So this is a kind of a glimpse of the sorts of people that you'll hear from in statutory heritage.
Hello, my name's Julie Willis. I'm a Professor of Architecture in the Faculty of Architecture, Building and Planning at the University of Melbourne.
I'm Graham Davis and I'm Emeritus Professor of History at Monash University.
My name is Ian Ham and I'm a board member of the National Trust, as well as a whole range of other Indigenous organisations.
My name is Jenny Moles and I'm the Chair of the Heritage Council of Victoria. I also work part-time as a senior panel member at Planning Panels Victoria.
My name is Adam Mortimer. I'm a principal of Level Chen, firm of heritage consultants and architects based in Melbourne.
My name is Felicity and I'm the Executive Manager of Advocacy at the National Trust of Australia, Victoria.
My name is Sue Ellen Hunter. I work for the City of Melbourne in the Heritage Strategy.
So that's just a short glimpse at some of the people who are a short glimpse of some of the people who we have across each of the microcerts, and each individual microcert has its own learning and delivery team of people who have come in from industry, typically, who do present the content and the latest knowledge as well from the field. To provide an example through statutory heritage, that means in the self-paced learning modules, there are 3 sections. In this particular one, introducing statutory heritage, understanding statutory heritage, and applying statutory heritage. And as you work through each of those modules, it's those sorts of people that you've just seen a moment ago who are on videos that you get the opportunity to learn from, and their resources and information and documents and other things that you can engage with as you work through those videos. And then the workshops act as that complement to that, where any questions and discussions can be had using the self-paced learning modules as a departure point. There are also virtual field trips built in across the microcerts. In statutory heritage, for example, one of the field trips is an exploration with the City of Melbourne and with Graham Davison, consulting historian, on the recent Hoddle Grid Heritage Review, which has been, and if you put in Hoddle Grid Heritage Review into Google, you'll see it's been a very celebrated example of updating local planning overlays in that area, in re-engaging with 19th century heritage, re-engaging with Indigenous heritage, and also looking at 20th century heritage as well. Some of the microcerts are more case study or virtual field trip focused, particularly, for example, new approaches to heritage significance, which has a range of case studies from around the world that are looked at as new ways of managing heritage are emerging. There is some assessment associated with each microcert in order to get the digital certification at the end. And these involve posting a little bit on the discussion boards after completing each module. They'll involve a kind of a short exercise. So for example, in statutory heritage, there's just a brief multiple choice quiz to do in your own time, a kind of pop quiz from the guided modules. And in statutory heritage, there's a case study response where you will apply the ideas and apply the discussions to a real life case study. And in this case, there's a 750 word response that's required. So 3 or 4 paragraphs of substantive text just showing your knowledge. In other microcerts, there's such as new approaches to heritage significance. There's an opportunity to actually look at a heritage place and think about how would we apply new approaches and new ideas to that place. So examples, using that one, we'll look at places like the Nicholas Building or like Federation Square or like others, and it's that opportunity to apply the knowledge too. Another aspect of the course is the course cafe, and this allows you to engage with other learners over Zoom or through other virtual means, whether it's completing something, it's group learning and other things. But one of the real goals of the microcerts is that you'll get the opportunity to meet and get to know other people through the course, professional networking, and that's what the course cafe is for. I wanted to show you a video from Statutory Heritage, one of those learning videos, and then we'll go into a little bit more of the admin of the course.
Might just jump in, James, and say that for you, I know it'll appear quite laggy for people other than James because it's on his computer. So, but rest assured that when you experience it, if you join the course, then it will be beautifully in sync.
Yes, absolutely. And it's even a little bit jumpy on my end today as well, which I'm sure is not helping how it's coming down the line. But absolutely, the videos are very, very good and very smooth when they're streamed from the system. Okay, so I'm going to show 3 or 4 minutes of this learning video.
So let's talk about a couple of examples of Aboriginal heritage, both of pre-contact, 19th century, for example, and the 20th century, and possibly even the 21st century. First of all, let's talk about Budgebin. Budgebin is down in the southwestern area of Victoria in the Western Districts. It's a place whose story goes back tens of thousands of years. Budgebin is effectively the landscape or on the volcanic plain running from what was known as Mount Apples down into Bass Strait. What you'll find is this volcanic flow or lava flow has been used by the Gunditjmara people for approximately 20,000 years, I believe it is. And it's where around Lake Condah, which is on Budgebin, that the Gunditjmara established a permanent settlement. Many people don't think Aboriginal people had permanent settlements, but indeed we did. And the best example in Victoria was the one at Lake Condah. Right now, the Gunditjmara are restoring Lake Condah. It's been reflooded. They're rebuilding the fish traps, which were used for thousands of years by the Gunditjmara people to farm eels in their permanent settlement, a constant and steady supply of food. I would encourage anybody to go down to the Budge Bin landscape to see not only the impact of Aboriginal people on that landscape, but hear the stories, the legends, and the connection to country and what that tells you about who we are. In terms of the 19th century, there is also a great many heritage sites around the state which tell the beginnings of the contemporary stories of Aboriginal Victoria. For an example of this is Corranderk Station up near Healesville. Now, Corranderk Station doesn't exist as a place anymore, but certainly during its time in the 19th century, it was a large Aboriginal reserve. It was in fact a very profitable farming community where large amounts of Aboriginal people were moved to and turned it into a hops farm and a vegetable farm and created other industries there. And in fact, it was paying for itself. Unfortunately, as the 19th century wore on into the 20th century, Aboriginal people had their rights stripped away until Corranderk Station was reduced to a very small land holding, and the community there was dispersed to other missions and indeed into the community around Melbourne. But the remnant landscape of Corranderk Station is still there, and indeed you can still see place names and the Aboriginal community's connection to it up around Healesville. During the 20th century, there are places that have had meaning for Aboriginal people. A good example of this is the Baptist Church in Fitzroy, otherwise known as Doug Nicholls Church. Who's Doug Nicholls? Or rather, Sir Douglas Nicholls. Doug Nicholls was an Aboriginal advocate, a pastor, who bravely stood up and fought for the rights of our people. His significance in the Aboriginal movement cannot be underestimated. He campaigned for the rights of Aboriginal people from when he was a young man. He was an Aboriginal person who also played VFL football at a time when being Aboriginal and playing league football was frowned upon. He copped much racial abuse. He went on to become Sir Douglas Nicholls, knighted by the Queen for his service to Aboriginal people and to the Victorian community, and was in fact appointed Governor of South Australia. So the church where he preached from, the church where he organised the rights movement, is a critical part of the social history of Victoria and very, very much part of the identity of 20th century Aboriginal Victoria. Another building is the...
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. You'll have to enrol in statutory heritage to see the last section of that fantastic learning video with Ian Ham from the National Trust of Victoria. As you can see, and as it's already been foregrounded, we've worked with a range of organisations and firms to establish these microcerts and ensure that they're being co-produced with industry. That's included Heritage Victoria and various agencies of the Victorian Government, the Heritage Council of Victoria, Parks Victoria, the National Trust, Australian Commonwealth Cities of Melbourne and Ballarat, a range of heritage firms including Bryce Rayworth Architects, GML Context and Lovell Chen. And we've worked with consultants from across Australia, and the microcerts are in general designed for practitioners across Australia and across the region. We've had enrolments from Indonesia, we've had enrolments from New Zealand, and we've had enrolments from across all the states and major cities of Australia. The only flag or exception to that is statutory heritage, which is taught from a Victorian perspective due to the nature of the planning system and of the state heritage system. The other microcerts, though, are definitely draw upon case studies and issues from across Australia and also from across the world in bringing the perspective, management perspectives on heritage. Course registrations and admissions, so just a little bit of the administrative side of things. The eligibility requirements in order to register and enrol is a 3-year undergraduate degree and some relevant work experience. So we're talking in the built environment sector and the cultural heritage sector, very, very generally, as long as, and you don't have to have previously necessarily engaged with heritage, but you should certainly obviously have an interest, which you would if you're looking to enroll in the microcerts. The tuition fees are $1,490, including GST, per microcert, and alumni are eligible for a discount. At the end of the microcert, you'll get a digital certificate, which includes information evidence of your developed and actionable skills, knowledge, and capabilities. And these are neat little images, and I've seen our graduates of the microcerts share them on LinkedIn and share them with their employers as well, and they're quite a little nice digital piece or artifact that you receive at the end, warranting that. The microcerts are administered by the School of Continuing and Professional Education, MSpace, and they have excellent hours that they're open. And you can also speak to them via live chat, email and phone, and they respond within a couple of business days. And they're right through the administration process from your initial enrolment right through to your final credentialing. They're available to assist you. So at this point, I just wanted to briefly highlight that Stuart, another aspect of what ACAHUCH offers and its connection to the microcerts.
Thanks, James. Yes, so ACAHUCH and MSD also offer a Master of Urban and Cultural Heritage. So this is a 12-month program if you're wanting to take your studies in heritage further. So you can do the course full-time over 12 months, or you can do it part-time over 2 years. Now, one of the main connections to the ACAHUCH MicroCerts is that as a part of the admission requirements for this program, you produce a personal statement, and I'd encourage you, if you've done one or more of the microcerts, to refer to having undertaken them, in part as demonstration of your knowledge and engagement within the field. If you've completed all 4 of the microcerts, then you can also apply for them to be considered as equivalent to one elective subject within the Master of Urban and Cultural Heritage. So in this program, we have 3 core subjects which explore principles of heritage and conservation, issues and techniques in global heritage, and then a subject which is largely project-based, exploring urban and landscape heritage. The program also offers you the opportunity to do one selective subject. So this is from about 5 subjects that we've identified as having a strong heritage focus or relevance within the faculty. And then you have 2 electives, and you choose either a research pathway, which involves completing a minor thesis in urban cultural heritage, or you choose a major internship, which involves spending 4 weeks with an organisation and then undertaking a research project in relation to that experience. If you do go forward into the Master of Urban and Cultural Heritage, there are also some early exit options, including a specialist certificate and a graduate certificate. And certainly the faculty and the university can provide further information on some of the detail of this program. James?
Great, thanks, Stuart. For the majority of people, though, who do the microcerts, don't end up taking that particular pathway. And in fact, a lot of the people who take the microcerts have done graduates of Masters of Cultural Heritage courses as well, because although that's one pathway and one opportunity is the education opportunity, the other focus is really the career opportunities that come out of the microcerts as well. And so I think we've already highlighted there for professionals with diverse backgrounds. Your background could be in a range of areas, and we've got a list of them there: policy, planning, property, construction, asset management, architecture, design, heritage, or history. Or you might be in a culture and arts sector, or a recent graduate. And really the opportunity for the microcerts is to upskill, expand your knowledge, or take the next steps in your career through these innovative and engaging courses. And these really responsive courses are what will put you at the forefront of heritage practice in the Australian and the international context. So it's with that we'll bring this this particular part of the information session to an end. thanks so much, Hannah, Philip, and Stuart as well. And yeah, so I'll stop the share there, and we'll then open a Q&A, and would love to hear your questions and thoughts.